Hi folks, and welcome to this week's Productivity Enhancer. If you've ever used any of the previous or current versions of Photoshop, chances are you've cropped a photo. The ability to crop photos has been a part of Photoshop since the beginning. However, with each new version, the crop tool has become more defined, more powerful, and more intuitive. So we're going to explore all the more advanced options of the crop tool, but first let's just walk through the basics. Of course, the crop tool is located on your toolbar right here. It's the crop tool. And there's a few different ways you can crop a photo. Let's go ahead and click in the photo to activate the crop tool. So the easiest way is just to grab some of the handles on the side, and you can crop as much or as little of the photo as you'd like. You can grab from the top and it will just move up and down, or from either of the corners, and it will enlarge or reduce the crop marquee as much as you'd like. When you do grab any of these handles, you can see the transformation info box that's right on the upper right corner here. So you can see that our width and our height changes as we drag that handle. But as is the case with most things in Photoshop, we can change the location of that information box. So let's just close out of this. And to do that, we go under Edit, Preferences, Interface, and you can see Show Transformation Values. Right now it's in the top right. We can put it in the top left, or bottom right, as well as the top right. I like it where it is, so I'm just going to keep it right there. While we have the preferences open, let's take a look under the General tab. And something new to Photoshop CS6, we have this image interpolation choice here. And if we take a look under the drop-down menu, right now we have bicubic automatic selected. And we have a few different choices here, but for this new bicubic automatic feature, we have the bicubic option, which is best for smooth gradients, bicubic smoother, which is best for enlarging, and that's going to smooth out any jagged edges that come by enlarging a photo. Then we have bicubic sharper, which is going to sharpen edges as we reduce the size of a photo. But if we just put it on bicubic automatic, it's going to do those actions automatically. So those options are new to CS6, but chances are you won't move it from automatic. Also new in CS6 is if we do crop our photo, but we decide that we want to move that marquee, we grab the photo and a different part of the photo will be cropped. However, if you notice, it's very subtle. The marquee itself is not moving, the picture underneath is. So that's a new feature within CS6, and if you don't like the picture moving underneath, you can always change that by clicking on our settings wheel and using classic mode, and that'll just move the marquee as you may be used to. You can also constrain the aspect ratio of your crop box, and we have a few different options built in. It's automatically set to unconstrained, which means that you can toggle those handles in any direction and size that you'd like. But if you do want a specific aspect ratio, like 1:1 means a perfect square, then by dragging out that handle, our crop marquee is going to remain a perfect square. Even if you drag it from the center, it's still going to reduce it as a square. We can also change that aspect ratio on the fly, which is also new for CS6. Here we have 4:5. Here we have standard letterhead size, and so on and so forth. You can also make a custom size and resolution by clicking Size and Resolution. And here it's automatically set to custom, but you can choose from images that are already open, or in custom you can enter your own. So we want to set this to inches. We'll have it 8:5. with a resolution of 300 pixels per inch. And this little check mark by Save as Crop Preset means that you can save this preset, and if you hit OK, it gives you the option to change that name. The default name that it comes up with is just the size, but you can change it to whatever you like. And that will show up under your presets. However, one thing to take note of, even though the aspect ratio is 5:7, that doesn't necessarily mean that your crop box is going to be 5:7 inches. As you can see, our width right now is 16.461 and our height is 11.756. But if you do the math, then you'll find out that that is actually the same aspect ratio of a width of 7 to a height of 5. So just keep in mind that these presets are not the actual inches, they're just an aspect ratio. If you would like to change that size and resolution by a short key, you can hit R, and you can also rotate the crop box by hitting X. However, we'll just leave it right there. So before we accept it, we also have the option to delete cropped pixels. I've already unchecked it, meaning that Photoshop is going to store all of this information that's outside of the crop box. If you'd like that information to be deleted, you can always delete it. However, I think it's a little dangerous to do that. I usually unclick that delete cropped pixels box and leave it as is. Also, before I accept it, if you would like to get rid of this grayed out material, if you don't like it hanging out there, you can just hit H, and that will make it disappear and just give you a look inside the crop marquee box. Alright, we'll accept that. And now you see that our background layer has changed to a regular layer. So by cropping the photo, our layer is no longer flattened, it's converted into a regular layer, and now we have the full scope of options that provides. But if we move this photo by holding down V and moving the photo, you can see that by not clicking the Delete Cropped Pixels box, we still have that information available. That's always handy if you do want to make slight, small adjustments without having to undo the whole thing. Since our crop tool is still selected, if we just click in that photo, then our crop box returns. We can make the crop marquee larger or smaller as we so desire. Right now we know that the crop box is activated by the grid lines that you see right in front of us. We can also adjust that. Right now it's set to the rule of thirds, which means that we have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 for a total of 9 sectors in our crop box. We can change that by going up to grid, and when you select grid, our grid lines show up as prescribed under the preferences. You can change the size of that grid box by going up to preferences in grid, but we won't worry about that right now. We also have diagonal, which puts diagonal lines through our crop box. We also have triangle, golden ratio, and golden spiral. You also have the option to never show that overlay and to auto show the overlay, which is actually what I prefer. By leaving it on auto show, we'll put it back to the rule of thirds, those orientation lines are only going to show up when you grab the handle and resize your crop box. So you can see that those orientation lines are there until I let go. And that's the same for the side toggles, etc., etc. So far we've just cropped inside of the photo. We can also crop outside of the photo and enlarge the canvas by just dragging our handles outside of the area of the photograph, and by doing that we've added that much canvas. We can still move that photograph within the crop space, and we can still change our aspect ratio. Let's leave it unconstrained, and then we can move it in and just give ourselves a nice little border. So we're still able to rotate photos within the crop feature. We have our crop tool still chosen. So if we go outside of the crop box, you can see that our arrows change. Now they're changed to rotate, and we can rotate that photo a full 360 degrees if we so desire. And what used to happen is that this photo would resize itself to be inside of the crop box, leaving this blank area as part of the photograph. However, now, by rotating, it utilizes the edges of the photograph, and then we can resize the crop box afterwards. So if we just leave it there and we drag it out, you can see how easy it is to use the rotate function. We also have the straighten tool here, which allows you to straighten out horizons or any kind of line in your photograph that requires straightening. So let's just go ahead and grab our straightening tool and straighten along this line here. And you can see it rotates and straightens out that horizon, and the crop box aligns to the edges of the photograph instead of incorporating this blank space. And by hitting OK, we've turned the photo into a layer and it's been straightened. So one last thing I'd like to look at is the Perspective crop tool. Now historically, the Perspective crop tool has been hidden under the crop tool and you had to dig and search for it. However, now in CS6, we have Perspective crop tool right underneath crop tool. If you right click on the crop, and there you go, it's at your disposal. And what the Perspective crop tool does is it allows you to choose a perspective and straightens your photograph based on that perspective. So let's just choose these two lines. And once your perspective is chosen, you can drag out the toggles and resize as much of the photo as you'd like. And when you accept it, it'll crop that part of the photograph and straighten it as well. However, be aware that if you do use the Perspective crop tool, it will delete the material on the outsides and you won't be able to use that material once you've okayed it. So it's probably a good idea to leave more of that photograph than you think you'll need, and then you can always crop it out later. So that's a pretty comprehensive look at the crop tool. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching Weekly Productivity Enhancer. Until next time.